But
Mm.
I actually want to touch on the comments you made on real estate, because we knew like a month or two ago, that the Blackstone REIT gated redemptions. Yesterday, we found out Starwood gated, and we found out KKR gated. So we have a bridge lending team at Horizon. They have a small fund, really interesting. But so then they're down in Miami at a multifamily conference earlier this month. So I had no idea people were playing this game. So what people were doing is they were going out and buying a multifamily property anywhere from a 3 to a 4, maybe max a 5 cap, but let's say 3 to 4 during, like, peak free money. They're borrowing at SOFR plus 200. So let's say they were borrowing at 2.5. And banks, oh, multifamily is impregnable, so I'm going to give you an 80% LTV. So they've got an 80% LTV interest only loan at 2.5 floating, and their property's yielding, let's be generous and say 3.5. So the game that everyone was playing was, I've got this 2 to 3 year IO loan. I'm going to go in, I'm going to paint the building, I'm going to put in a new refrigerator, and I'm going to put carpet in, and I'm going to raise the rents. Then I'm going to have higher net operating income. I'm going to basically go to a bank and get permanent financing off of my higher NOI, pull out my equity, and now I have all this cash flow for free. And rinse, wash, repeat. People got really rich doing it. But when the music stops, you have a big problem, because, oh no, SOFR is now, what's 1 year? 3.5, 4, plus 200. So now you're carrying a property yielding 3 and change at 6 and change, and you have basically this liquidity mismatch. And then this is what really terrified me. Everybody at this conference is running around to bridge lenders saying, hey, I need 1 year extension. It's like, okay, well, what's 1 year? What's a 1 year extension going to do? I don't know. The Fed's gonna pivot in the back half of this year. So just give me a 1 year extension, bridge me for a year. SOFR is going to go down, and it's all going to bail me out, and everything is going to be fine. That is happening with these smaller people that are doing this rinse, wash, repeat. But it's also happening at the biggest levered private equity firms in the country with this multifamily thing. And it's just like, where like 4.5 caps in this environment when your funding costs might be 6.5, 7. So like, I had no idea this was going on to the extent it was going on. And now seeing that these redemptions are being capped everywhere makes me think, like, wow, could this be the Bear Stearns credit funds in the spring of 2007? I hope
Yes.
not.
Yes. No. Look, and that spring of '07, and it's so funny listening to you talk about this, because it's just a different version of. Yes, it's actually kind of why I'm sitting here today. I mean, Morgan Creek would be nothing really if not for that 2006 2007 period where we just got that right. There's this funny line that when people would leave Julian's shop, and Julian was my mentor when I worked at UNC, and people would leave and he'd say, Julian, do you have any advice for me as I start my new business? He'd say, yeah, make sure in the first 2 years you get lucky. That's really good advice, really hard to follow. But it took us 3. So we launched in 2004, and I've told the story. So we had this client. He founded J. Crew, sold it to TPG, retired with $300 million. He moved to Incline Village. Well, he moved to Incline Village first, then sold the business so he could get the tax break, and bought this big house. And we're talking to him, and he was 83 years old, quoted Sartre, great guy. He passed away finally, but amazing guy. And he calls us one day. He was madder than a wet hen. I mean, he was pissed. I'm like, Arthur, what is wrong? He says, I deserve to live here. I'm like, well, of course you do. What are you talking about? He says, I sold my business for $300 million. I bought this house. The average house in Incline Village is $12 million. I deserve to live here. The guys on either side of me, 35 years old, 2 kids. There's no way they can afford to own these houses. This ends badly. You find me a way to get short.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. And we went out and we met John Paulson and John Burbank and Kyle Bass. And we put 10% of our client assets with 6 different managers who were all short subprime in 2006. First month, we gave the money to John. You remember the movie? You remember the scene in the movie where the bankers are saying, oh, we got this? down 13%. We're down 13% in the first month. Clients tearing their hair out thinking you guys are so idiotic, right? This is going on forever. Now, the rest is history, and John was up 500 and something percent, and life was good. But the point was, I had a friend, right, who was condo flipping in Miami. Kind of same thing, right? He had 20 condos. Bear Stearns happens. He puts them out for sale. He says, I'm gonna do a 50% off sale. No bids.
Oof.
Not no offers. I mean, not no sales. No offers. No, nothing. And they all got foreclosed and the banks bought. Now, all those condos have been sold. If you go down to Miami, everybody's, living large. But it took a decade. And exactly what James described, it's coming. You look all around Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where I live. There are driver 9-iron. Well, not my driver 9-iron, but driver 9-iron for me. There are 20 apartment things that all happen with this special opportunity zone thing, this nonsense where, rich people got a tax credit for, backing an apartment complex. So many apartment complexes, empty.
Yeah. The opportunity zone thing was, people love to point to PPP as a form of grift. I would love it if someone did an analysis of opportunity zones and who
No,
actually
they did
made money
the whole
and
episode of Billions. There was 3 episodes of Billions
Yeah.
where they went down and told you this is total grift for billionaires. I mean, crazy. An investigative reporter could win a Pulitzer for that, probably.
So just to put a bookend here on what you guys are saying, is there's still risk in the real estate market, and a lot of people, we've talked about on the show in the context of sort of single family real estate, basically like people's homes and stuff like that. But I honestly kind of skimmed the headlines for BREIT. I saw KKR. There was a similar situation, and so what type of is that commercial real estate that's impacting? And then what are the overall implications of that, right? Like the scary part, right? Basically my takeaway, James, from what you were just saying, and you, Mark, is basically there's real estate is extremely interest rate sensitive. We had extraordinarily low interest rates that a bunch of enormous, real estate managers levered themselves to. And now that rates are up, potentially they might have to liquidate holdings or they're in trouble, and everyone's counting on a pivot in 2020. Is that the basic gist of what we're talking about? It's like, what are the implications of if we don't get a pivot? Are these guys all underwater? And if so, what happens in that situation?
Remember that picture of Mr. T? Pain. 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 Yeah. And I know most people listening to this are like, Mr. T, who's Mr. T? Google it. Mr. T, amazing actor.
But Mike, to
in air quotes.
To your direct, I know Blackstone's portfolio is mostly multifamily, and they're in the Sun Belt, where they tell you all these reasons why it's advantaged, and they're really smart, really good real estate investors. I bet that their properties are much better than your average apartment building, but gravity is gravity. I'm not sure what Starwood and KKR's portfolios look like, but the real pain that this bridge lender was seeing was focused in multifamily. But to your point, and there's parallel to this with, okay, what is inflation? What is a pivot? So a pivot where they pause, these guys are still toast because they're done with a pause.
Say that again, James. Say that again. Because that's the point that people have to realize.
A pause, everyone is still toast in the back half of this year.
Yeah,
that's what no one gets.
Can you explain that to me?
So, okay, what is a pivot? In my mind, a pivot means, oh my gosh, the system is collapsing. We've got to cut. I think what's more likely going to happen, and Neil Kashari wrote a op-ed on his Medium blog, which basically said, we're going to get another 1 or 2 in, and then we're going to pause for an extended period of time, hire for longer, and wait for it to flow through the system.
So you're the one reader of that blog. I'm so psyched to meet you. That's so cool.
I'm just like, because somebody sent it to me, and I'm just like, the guy who was saying we need to stay at 0 through 24 or whatever he was saying before is now saying, I got to at least see what he's saying. He talks about like Uber surge pricing. I was like, all right, anyway. But that is doomsday because a pause at these rates, everything still breaks, and everyone's banking on materially lower rates and materially looser policy in the back half of this year. But let's just assume you're borrowing at SOFR plus 250, your funding costs are 6.5, and you're in a property yielding 4. If they simply pause, you're not bailed out in the back half of this year. You're still underwater, and then good luck finding someone to extend that for another year. To put a bow on this, the world that we all see, what do you own? And I think based on kind of the end game, to kind of take the Grant Williams thesis here, I think you have to own hard assets. You have to own tangible, finite stores of value. What do we own? We own a lot of energy. We own a lot of precious metals, base metals, agriculture, land companies, things like that have this staying power, that have this value. And, this thesis, I think, is a also very strong conclusion for Bitcoin as well.